Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the PixelCast. I am Jeremy Alessi, founder of PixelFest, and I hope you're having a great new year. I know that I am, and I hope you enjoyed last week's episode with Kishi Bashi. I am looking forward to having many more guests on the show in 2020 as things progress. This week, though, what I want to do is just bring some updates about PixelFest, what we're doing in the community, and also hopefully enlighten you with a little bit of my philosophy. First up, in the background, what you see is the Global Game Jam logo. Global Game Jam has been a part of PixelFest, although not necessarily directly and not really with the community, but one of the things that Henry and I did when PixelFest got rolling was go to other cities during Global Game Jam to tell them about PixelFest. And so that is why when we got started, a lot of our developers were from DC, they were from Raleigh, and they were from Richmond, which had game development communities that were larger and more active than what we had in Hampton Roads. To tell you the truth, I don't think we really had much in Hampton Roads at all the first year at the first PixelFest. The news was there talking about all these game developers, and 90 or 95% of them were from other cities. They were not actually from Norfolk or Virginia Beach or Hampton or anywhere in Hampton Roads. So Global Game Jam has been something that's been a part of PixelFest indirectly since the very beginning. Now this year, what I'm thinking about doing, and I'm putting the plans together, are having a Global Game Jam spot here in Norfolk, and hopefully that'll be at Percolator. Well, we'll see. Those plans are sort of being put together. And before Global Game Jam, what I'd like to do is also have a boot camp for, it's going to be a limited number of people. This is the first year that we're doing this, so space will be limited, but basically the idea is to have a boot camp one weekend before the Global Game Jam, and then have the Global Game Jam the next weekend, so that anybody that's new, that hasn't already wet their feet with game development, can come to the boot camp, learn how to make a game. It'll be light, it'll be easy, just learn your way around the tools, and then you can come back the next week and do Global Game Jam and actually produce a game, meet some team members, and do some community building that weekend. And the cool thing about that is, if you get a project started at Global Game Jam, then you can bring it to PixelFest this year and show it off at the Indie Showcase. So I think that's going to be a really great way to do the Game Jam portion of PixelFest. And we'll see. We might have a Game Jam at PixelFest as well, which is going to be months later, though. So there's going to be quite a bit of time between Global Game Jam and PixelFest. And so this just gives the opportunity to learn game development early on in the year, get something started, and if you like it, things are going well with it, then come and actually this gives you an advanced chance to get into the Indie Showcase at PixelFest and do that there. So not necessarily a replacement for the PixelFest Game Jam, but really more to help locals here to get something together in time for PixelFest that they can show off at the Indie Showcase. Now, one thing I also want to bring to the forefront today is I do want to announce our anchor partners for PixelFest this year. So first off, we're going to have Circuit Social as an anchor partner. And, Circuit has been a wonderful spot to hang out. In fact, our next PixelFest Devs Meetup will be at Circuit Social this month. The third Tuesday of every month, of course, is the PixelFest Devs Meetup. And January, the third Tuesday of January, from 6 to 8. Really, we usually go quite a bit later than that. It's usually more like 6 to 10 plus. But we'll be hanging out at Circuit Social, so that's a great place to come. If you haven't been there, definitely come to the PixelFest Devs Meetup and hang out, get the lay of the land there. But Circuit, as I said, an anchor partner for PixelFest 2020. We're so happy to have them aboard. They're going to bring just so much greatness to PixelFest this year. Obviously, they've got a ton of arcade games, ton of entertainment, but they also, of course, have food and drink, and the setup that we have is going to be phenomenal. So looking forward to telling you more about exactly how that setup is going to work. But just know that we'll be hanging out, partially at least, at Circuit Social. And next, we have Percolator. So I'm sort of blocking their logo here. But Percolator, of course, is co-working. There are several campuses in downtown Norfolk. And Percolator brings with them, there are the conference rooms, and there's office space. There are what are called like flex desk. And so Percolator is just a really great place to get together, network, sit at your computer, do the work that you've got going on. But also there are a lot of just general meetings, community meetings that go on there. I've been involved in several where, people from all over the community come. That's the great thing. You've got business owners, people that are in government that, come and hang out there, creatives, just all types. So Percolator is a wonderful space, and what you can expect at PixelFest, of course, this year is that Percolator will be where we do a lot of any of these sort of classroom activities, the boot camps, the things that were on the 6th floor at Slover Library, or the things that we had more in the, I'm trying to think, the conference rooms if you're at PixelFest in 2018 in the Half Moon Cruise and Celebration Center. So any of that type of stuff where things need to be a little bit more quiet, we're sort of stepping away from the entertainment there for a minute to learn, those sort of things will be in Percolator. So by sort of anchoring the event right there between Percolator and Circuit, it gives us the spirit of PixelFest, which is growing through love of games. So you can come down, hang out at Circuit, and that's where you can express your love for games that already exist. And then you, of course, can look at the schedule, head over to Percolator, and come into a boot camp where you can, learn more and you can grow through that love of games. And so I think these two anchor partners really capture what PixelFest is all about, and I am just so looking forward to, of course, letting you in more on the events of this year's PixelFest as details unfold. For right now, that's about all that I can announce, but I'm really excited about what's going on this year, and I hope that you are too. Of course, you can send any questions you might have to contact@pixelfest.org, message us on Facebook or Twitter. I think there are about 1 million ways to reach us. So hope you're excited about these partners and these first anchor partners as I am. And I want to now get on with a little bit of philosophy. So one of the things I don't know if I've mentioned on the PixelCast before, I don't think I have, is that I've written a couple of books. And one of the books is what you see in the background right now, this is something that I did more as a personal project. It's a little bit of a philosophy book. And I realized that it essentially came out of my pursuit of game development as a programmer. What I recognized was that no matter what I was programming, whether it was a Portal clone, a racing game, video compression, audio sampling, anything, I was stock trading, any sort of financial stuff. So it almost seemed that no matter what I was programming, that I was solving those problems using vectors, like, character jumping. So vector, of course, is a magnitude and a direction, or a direction and amount. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to read the Life as a Vector book for you in a second. One thing I want to do is just jump ahead real quick, and I want to explain. Life as a Vector, this is a philosophy I came up with a long time ago, and I just sort of started trying to apply it to things in my everyday life. I mean, probably the first time that I really thought about it was in college. I was taking simultaneously physics and Western civilization, and they were really paired together quite well. But learning about physics, and of course then learning about Isaac Newton at the same time, and even before that, sort of there was a cultural phenomenon associated with the discovery of deterministic physics in human civilization. So of course, at first, we figure out that, how gravity works, or we figure out, how wind resistance works, or just even how mass works. And then, of course, people took that to the next level way back when, because as soon as I found out about these things, I started thinking, oh, wow, I see all sorts of parallels, even with psychology and how people think. And I started applying vectors to everything. It was like, well, if you want to get better at something, you have to practice. You have to put more time into making video games. If you don't put the time into making video games, you're not going to be good at it. And so it's almost like you're collecting mass or velocity, even behind some sort of social pursuit. Now, what I remember from back then, of course, was learning the math and the physics and sort of the technical side of it, while in Western civilization, learning that this was an idea that other people had. Of course, this was disproven. This is not scientific. Nevertheless, I think that it is quite fun to think about physics in a sort of a non-deterministic, sort of social way. And I captured that in Life as a Vector, although I think probably the first time that I mentioned it in print was in this book, which is iPhone 3D Game Programming All-in-One. And this was published back in 2010. So it was one of the first iPhone game development books, and it took you through the complete development of a game called Tropical Tailspin, which was a flight simulator for iOS, and it was everything from conception to completion. So the 3D modeling, the programming of the flight model, and all of that. So this is it's like a 400-page monstrosity that I wrote way back in the day. But I mentioned early on in the book, I think I mentioned Life as a Vector, but it's something that I've been toiling with for many, many years. And so I guess the first thing that I'll do is just go ahead and read the book. So I'm going to start out here. A vector is a direction and an amount. Vectors take part in every account. You know what I'm going to do here too? I'm going to go ahead and get in front of it. All right. Vectors can help or make us yelp. Some vectors are easy to see, others can only be felt. Still other vectors, are more difficult. When they are, just take your time. Vectors add up just like a rhyme. As we progress, our decisions compress. Sometimes we go right, and others we go wrong. A vector can be a bit like a song. And let's switch. Until one day, when we hear the gong, all possessions once held are eventually quelled. Even our memories aren't immune. Wouldn't it be nice if it weren't all gloom? Perhaps we all zoom right past the moon. If life is a vector, then there's a chance that we're all living to take a stance. Choose your life wisely, think of your goal. There's also a good chance that a vector's your soul. So, initially when I thought of this concept, I'm just trying to think. I guess I sort of wrote it off. I thought it was cool to say, and I couldn't. Let's just put it this way. I always wanted to figure out a way to put it into words and pictures and try to capture some of the deeper things that I thought of throughout my own life. I remember, one thing in here, all possessions are quelled. A long time ago, I remember talking to my mom, and we were talking about college and how, the greatest thing about college was that nobody could take it away from you, right? Once you have education, you have it. And then something sank in. It was like, well, yeah, until you die, right? At which point, when you die, do you retain knowledge? Does knowledge even matter at that point? And so I know for some people that have read this, they think this is one of the sort of the darker parts of this idea. But I think the notion that you should keep something, once you're gone is important. I think all of us feel that. And so when I wrote this book, I wanted to capture that. And I realized that as you're doing all these things in your life that there's even people that have come and gone already, we sort of identify a certain feeling with that person. And one might say, well, that's their soul or their spirit or, something like that. And I'm not really diving into metaphysics per se, just socially there's that feel. And not to mention that there could very well be some sort of metaphysical process going on. But yeah, I think that the vector as a construct actually can capture this, which is very interesting. And what it means is it takes a whole lifetime of decisions and actions and thoughts and feelings and all that and compresses it down into one, just subtle, elegant structure, which is pretty neat. And, this is how we do, obviously, a lot of things in video game programming. And I don't know. I thought this was neat. I hope you enjoyed the story. This book is actually up on Amazon. You can search for it if you'd like to get a copy of it. Not really trying to hawk copies of it per se, but it's something that from time to time I think, you wrote that book and you don't really share it a whole lot. So why not share it, if for nothing else other than just to share the philosophy, get a conversation started about it. What do you think about this, as a philosophy? There's some times that, I think it's neat still, and there are other times that I think that, there may even be a certain immaturity to it. When I wrote this, I was, certainly very obsessed with deterministic physics and determinism. As I've gotten a little bit older, my thoughts on, what's known and unknown, I think has sort of opened up and flowered a little bit. And so, I'm not saying that this is exactly how things are. I think it was a neat thought experiment. It was neat to take this sort of philosophy that obviously a lot of people thought about as soon as they realized that physics were a thing, that there was this deterministic language to the universe, and then they tried to sort of resolve that with human free will, and how do you and how there does seem to be some type of overlap, although it's not scientific. And I think even today, when you look at our artificial intelligence systems and things like that, one of the, I think, more famous ones is called TensorFlow. That's something that Google has created. And a tensor, then, I think, is a collection of vectors. So it's interesting because you're still using vectors to solve these problems. I'd love to hear from you, though, and get a conversation started about this. And, I don't know. There's not too much more for me to say about it. It was fun to, though, take this concept and put it into words and pictures and create a picture book out of it. And, so check it out if you want. And I'm trying to think. I guess that's about all for this week. I am looking forward to having more guests on the show and maybe circling back and talking about life as a vector at some point later. This is the first time that I think, opened up and spoken about it in a number of years. Like, I think the last time that I got up and actually spoke about this book was at a startup night with Hatch, like maybe 5 years ago or more. And, it's one of these things that it's fun, and at the same time, it's kind of embarrassing. I don't know how to explain that. But, when you have a philosophy and you actually take it and turn it into something tangible, there's something, you feel a little naked, I'll be honest with you about it. So that's life as a vector. I hope you enjoyed the news this week, though. I'm really excited to hopefully do this global game jam. You will see more about that in the news feed. We'll be advertising it as long as all the plans are solidified. It looks good as of right now. And of course, I'm so happy to have announced our anchor partners for PixelFest 2020 with Circuit Social and Percolator, both in downtown Norfolk. Thank you so much, you guys. And everybody have a great night.